Welcome in to the DNVR Rockies Podcast. I'm your host, Patrick Lyons, back here finally in the DNVR studios where I will be for a few weeks, at least until the winter meetings, and then I'm gone again. And then maybe taking some vacation time, whatever. I'm here, I'm now. Let's be present. Let's talk about all the news in the world of baseball and the Brewers. The hometown boy, Craig Counsell, going away from his Milwaukee Brewers to the Cubs, and David Ross, who was still their manager at the time. It's a saga. It's a lot of drama. We'll get into all of that. We'll talk about the GM meetings. What does it mean? What's going on down there in Scottsdale, Arizona, as well as some news coming out of Japan. Do you believe in ghosts? We'll talk about that. Spirits, the curse of Colonel Sanders. This is a real thing that we will break down. We'll get Tiff's input on this. Maybe this will be like your most favorite thing since the Savannah Bananas. We'll see. It's hard to beat, right? Savannah Bananas.
It's hard to beat the Savannah Bananas.
That's up there.
That's up
yes,
there.
Maybe
they do backflips and stuff.
Doing
like,
backflips.
How do you beat that?
A curse, maybe.
A curse.
You're the judge. You are the judge. We'll find out about that. Maybe
I do like spooky things. So.
If you like spooky things, that's it. Bananas aren't spooky. They're just fun. They are just fun. It's fun that the finalists have been announced for the BBWAA awards. We'll look at that. Did somebody inadvertently tell us the results already? Accidentally? Well, we're going to look at all of that today. Jam-packed show. My first one in a week. So excited today. But not excited a little bit. Maybe bittersweet in a sense. News coming out that Jonathan Daza, unfortunately, no longer a member of the Colorado Rockies organization. He, of course, was designated for assignment, played the bulk of the 2023 seasons with the Albuquerque Isotopes down in AAA, and he was one of several players to opt into free agency as a minor leaguer. He does that alongside Winton Bernard, Daniel Montano, a prospect that was signed real early on as a 16-year-old and had a decent year, started breaking out just a little bit. Catcher Jonathan Morales, who's been with the organization the last 2 years in Albuquerque. Justin Brule, left-hander, who the Rockies actually picked up at the trade deadline, really just claimed him on waivers. As well as right-handed pitcher Michael Peterson. A lot of buzz on him after what he was able to do for Great Britain during the World Baseball Classic, throwing 100 miles an hour. He is now a minor league free agent. Anderson Pilar, who was part of that no-hitter, that combined no-hitter earlier this season. Nick Kuzia, guy who was picked up as a minor league Rule 5 draft pick last year. And then Chris Olivares, player who was on the 40-man roster not too long ago, unfortunately had his share of injuries. Started coming back just a little bit last year. You like what he was able to do, but he is now a free agent looking to latch on with another team. But Jonathan Daza, man, he was signed as a 16-year-old out of Venezuela in 2010. I tweeted out just the other day about Charlie Blackmon having been with the organization longer than any player had as far as making his major league debut and being drafted now that Joey Votto has moved on, and a series of other players like Adam Wainwright have retired. Brandon Crawford now a free agent. Jonathan Daza has been with the Rockies since 2010. Unbelievable. .317 batting average in the minors, three-time minor league baseball. MILB.com organizational all-star for the Rockies in 2014, 17, and 19. He was an all-star in Single A with Asheville in 2016, a South Atlantic League postseason all-star in 2016, Cal League postseason all-star in High A in 2017, as well as a midseason all-star in Double-A at Hartford in 2018. That's where I actually first caught up with him, and he was very proud of his English. He said, how did I do? And he did great. It was awesome catching up with him, a guy who's close friends with Brendan Rodgers, working out with him during the offseason. Now, again, a free agent. Has a career big league batting average of .281. Of course, you might remember him making his debut in 2019, early in the year, April 9th versus Atlanta. Actually became the fourth Rocky ever to start and bat leadoff in his major league debut. The last to do that before him, Eric Young Jr., back in 2009. Didn't play in 2020, oddly enough, during that pandemic season, although he was at the alternative site. 2021, did a nice job off the bench as a pinch hitter. 8th highest on-base percentage in Rockies history, .433. And now, again, a free agent. Jonathan Daza, appreciate your time. A lot of really good memories. Last year was pretty much a big-time fan favorite in 2022, so he is gone. Where do the Rockies rank this offseason? Going into the offseason, their current team, their current roster, according to Mike Petriello of MLB.com, 30th. Dead last. Thank you, Mike. No, it is a fair assessment. This is where the Rockies are at. They got a lot of work to do this offseason. We got an article going up later today over at the DNVR.com, free and unlocked for everyone to read. Tomorrow, we got Kenneth Weber from Purple Row joining the show so we can break down what are the Rockies' needs. Yeah, there are a lot. Not as many as you might think, but in what areas? Where can they upgrade? Who are some of the free agents that are logical choices for the Rockies to go ahead and sign as free agents? We know they may have to be busy on the trade front. That's going to be harder to identify who those guys could be. But as far as free agents go, absolutely are some good options for them. So on Monday, the finalists for the BBWAA awards were announced. And one snub for the Rockies. Probably one snub. Now, Rookie of the Year award in the National League, it's going to be Corbin Carroll, James Outman, Cody Senga in the American League, Tanner Bibby, he made his debut against the Rockies, if you remember, in April. Tristan Casas and Gunnar Henderson, those three guys. And Nolan Jones, not in the top three. Is he going to be fourth? Could there be somebody else? We'll have to break down those numbers when the results actually do come out. I did have a vote in the National League Rookie of the Year award. So, of course, next Tuesday, once the results come out on Monday evening, I'll break down my votes. There'll be an article up all about it, where I voted. Did I also have Nolan Jones outside of the top three? Am I like the populace? Did I see things the same way? You have to wait and find out about that. Manager of the Year, Craig Counsell, Skip Shoemaker of the Miami Marlins, and Brian Snitker of Atlanta in the National League. And then the American League, Bruce Bochy, Kevin Cash, and Brandon Hyde. Keep in mind, the voting is all done before the postseason starts. It does not take into consideration the postseason, which you can make a case, hey, that makes sense. Maybe it doesn't. Fair, unfair. So that's one of the reasons why Torey Lovello, guy who, their team backed into the postseason. That's why he's not amongst the top three. But he did take them to the World Series. He did take them all the way to the end. He is not in the top three because, again, this is a regular season award. Cy Young Award, you have Zach Gallen, Blake Snell, Logan Webb of the Giants in the American League, Garrett Cole, Kevin Gausman, and Sonny Gray. And then finally, MVP, Ronald Acuna Jr., Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, and in the American League, Shohei Ohtani, Corey Seager, Marcus Semien. Now, I just saw this before we went live. Apparently, Jeff Passan may have inadvertently tweeted out the results of the BBWAA awards. This is the list of all the players, right? And they're not in alphabetical order. That's usually how you might see them. Instead, this list has them where you might favor them. Shohei Ohtani as MVP? Yeah, I would say so. Ronald Acuna Jr. as MVP in the National League? That makes sense. I would agree with the American League voting. National League, the same as well. And then same thing with the NL Rookie of the Year award. It kind of does line up with what you might end up seeing when the results finally do come out next week. Monday is Rookie of the Year award. Tuesday is Manager of the Year. Then Cy Young on Wednesday. And finally Thursday is MVP. And if you need an MVP at a party or get together, barbecue, whatever it is, make sure you've got yourself some Breckenridge Distillery, the official bourbon of the Denver Broncos, widely known for their blended bourbon whiskey, a high rye mash American style whiskey. They're giving away tickets to Broncos at the end of the season. It's next month now. We're already that far into the NFL slate of games. 2 tickets you're going to get to the Breckenridge Bourbon Suite for Broncos Chargers on December 31st. All you got to do is post a photograph of yourself, your favorite Broncos photograph, on Instagram or Facebook, and they'll make a decision here at the end of the month because December 1st. They're going to narrow it down to 10. So get those pictures in. Make sure you hashtag Breckenridge, or rather hashtag Broncos Bourbon. We got it at the tailgates. We got it at the bar. not much more I can say about how great of a product that they have. A local company, we love supporting them. Their Ricky Seltzers are also really fantastic and top notch. Their products are available in all 50 states. Shop your local retailer or visit Breckenridge Distillery for home delivery of that award-winning Breckenridge Spirits at Prey. Anywhere, and anywhere you go, you need a carrying device for your meats and your cheeses and your vegetables. What does that better than bread, right? Whether you're talking tortilla, you're talking bun, just straight up bread, you name it. Hero Bread has some great options for you, no matter what it is you're looking for. You're looking for high fiber, they've got that. You're looking for ultra low net carbs or zero sugar per slice, or you want something that's higher in protein, Hero Bread has got it. It's fantastic. They've got recipes even on their site. That's why I love supporting them. And I just love their product in general. Head over to hero.co for 10% off when you use that code DNVR. They're hooking you up in a major way. That's hero.co to save 10% today. I think we got our homie here coming in from the north side, Mr. Cody Delmendo, to help us figure out what the heck is going on. What's going on over there? Are you guys okay?
I'm still riding the high, to be completely honest with you, Patrick. It was a wild couple days, 2 days ago, especially when the news dropped that the Cubs were hiring Craig Counsell and, I guess in a way, technically firing David Ross. It feels weird because I don't think that they had any intentions of firing David Ross going into the offseason. But once that deadline of, being able to talk to free agents, I guess you could call him, after November 1st or whatever, when he was still available, hadn't taken the job from the Mets or the Guardians or had committed to go back to Milwaukee, Jed Hoyer, put his big boy pants on and said, let's go get the best guy available. To me, it's a signal that it's a big offseason ahead for the Chicago Cubs.
Absolutely. It's big boy pants is one way of putting it, because there's so many different facets of this saga, of this drama, that I think we're going to be talking about for a while. And it's also wild to think that we're talking about that in terms of a manager, right? It's like this offseason is supposed to be all about Shohei Ohtani, and now we're talking about a manager who's making $8 million a year, which doesn't seem like it's that much compared to what some relief pitchers are getting out there. But now is the highest paid manager in baseball with the $8 million he's going to make per year over the next 5 years. And a guy who is a Milwaukee guy. And he's from that area, and he goes to the Cubs, where it's just fascinating in so many ways. Actually, turns out Brewers fans are more upset at their GM, the president of baseball operations, than Craig Counsell. So that will be interesting to see what that relationship is like between Counsell and his community. But the David Ross business, I mean, you guys are at the center of it, because all of this seems like it came together really quickly and in a real strange way that just seems just so hard to fathom because of the job that David Ross did. They just missed out on the postseason. It didn't seem like he was on the hot seat. Maybe, I think you guys were talking about that over there on the CHGO Cubs podcast, that this year there was that potential, if things didn't start out the gate, that he was going to be on the hot seat, but he was not on the hot seat starting November 1st.
Right. Yeah. So there was a great article written by Sahadev Sharma from The Athletic, basically explaining like how it all went down, and it basically happened over the weekend. Again, the Cubs didn't have any intention of, letting David Ross go. They, despite how September went, they still outperformed their preseason expectations. And, I think they took a big step organizationally headed into this offseason, despite how September went. But I think for us, the guys at CHGO Cubs Podcast, me, Luke, Ryan, Corey, and Brendan, we all feel like this hire, this move, and how it all played out was very similar to when the Cubs hired Joe Madden going into the 2015 season. So I guess it would have been the 2014 offseason or winter.
Sure.
because Rick Renteria, who was the manager at the time, he was part of a rebuilding team. The Cubs had completely tore it down during that time. They improved to a 70-plus win team in 2014, and he got a lot of credit for helping the rebuild, as they called it. And I don't think anyone thought that he was going to lose his job going into 2015, and then Joe Maddon became available, and it was kind of shocking news. And the Cubs made a bold but also like big move to signal or to show the league, the fan base, and everything that they were going to be legit, that they were going to try and be legit and a much better team in 2015. They end up winning 98 games, go to the NLCS, and then obviously in 2016 they win the World Series with Joe Maddon. And I think that's how we kind of viewed this hire of Craig Counsell, because again, David Ross wasn't someone that we all thought was going to be on their way out. I think we definitely had a lot of criticism for him in September, and it's not that we thought he was perfect, and we, I guess we can say that we didn't think it was so bad that he was going to be the scapegoat for September or be on the way out this offseason. We thought next season, if things don't go well, if they're not clear playoff contenders, we thought perhaps he could be on the hot seat and on his way out. But we're never going to know that now because Craig Counsell is the guy. And again, I think it has a lot to do with the fact that no one else, the Brewers gave permission to the Mets, the Guardians. I'm sure there's another team in there that I'm not thinking of or remembering, but he didn't commit to any of those teams. And you got to a point where it became available for him to talk to any team he wanted. And Jed Hoyer, again, made a big move that no one saw coming. I said on our show a few weeks prior that the Cubs should at least try and have a conversation with him, because no matter how much I have this disdain for the Milwaukee Brewers, I understand that Craig Counsell is one of the better managers in baseball to take the rosters that he has been given by Milwaukee over the last five years, and for him to be able to turn those rosters into division winners. It says a lot about him as a manager, I believe, and I'm excited to see what he can do with the Cubs and an organization that historically, at least under Tom Ricketts, has shown that they have the resources to put teams over the top financially, on top of the fact that they have a top 5 farm system in baseball right now. If you're a Cubs fan right now, you have to be very, very excited.
Yeah, it's interesting if you look at it from the context of if you sign one single big free agent, it doesn't necessarily mean you're about to contend. I mean, we know that here in Colorado. You sign Chris Bryant and you go, all right. I mean, it's interesting. Maybe that's the start of something. It hasn't really started anything yet, unfortunately. But you go, okay, that's the start of something. But to your point, all right, you get a big free agent manager in Craig Counsell. This does mean you are committed to winning, very quickly, and getting a guy like that. And because of the history of what happened, where Rick Renteria went out, and Joe Maddon came in. Fortunately, that happened to Rick Renteria again when he was with the White Sox too. So
yeah,
that's been unfortunate. And then you kind of upgrading there, so that definitely does signal that things are on the up and up. It's a big boy move, like you said, big boy pants from Jed Hoyer. Patrick Mooney also on The Athletic said his article on Tuesday, I think, was, quote, "In a cold-blooded move, David Ross out as Cubs manager because he isn't Craig Kimbrell." And that's rough, because obviously there's a relationship in front offices with managers and GMs and presidents of baseball operation and owners, right? And they become part of your family, and you're around these people all the time. And there is a sense of loyalty, but at the same time, there's a careful balance in trying to win ball games and win a championship. And you can't always be loyal 100%, and you have to make difficult moves like this. Was this, that right move? I mean, it remains to be seen. Right now, it seems very exciting. But if this thing kind of goes south, you go, wow, that was a really bad look. Maybe I'm not going to say backstabbing, but certainly that's going to be a view of how some people take this from how David Ross was done here in this.
Yeah, no, I don't think you can, with a straight face sit here and say that David Ross wasn't done dirty, right? Like, again, on one hand, like Jed Hoyer emphasized it. I think we can all, from the outside looking in, we weren't in the conversation that him and Jed Hoyer had in Tallahassee, Florida. Whenever they had that conversation, we can tell that there was no intention of changing the manager, but with the opportunity to perhaps upgrade at that, position. Jed Hoyer did his due diligence, I think. Sure, in hindsight, if the Cubs don't, win a World Series in the next 5 years, heck, if they aren't making the playoffs every single year over the next 5 years, if they don't make the playoffs at least 4 of the 5 times, 5 seasons that he's under contract, I think you could sit here and say that perhaps he was not only overpaid, but maybe it was a disappointment. Depends on what happens, right? Depends on how the roster is crafted. Because right now, the Cubs still have a lot of work to improve their roster and actually be a legit playoff contender next year. But I don't think that it's necessarily a bad thing of what Jed Hoyer did. He thought of the organization first, and as the fan of the team, that's what I always want. And I understand how hard it had to be for him to have that conversation with David Ross. Remember, David Ross was on the 2016 World Series championship team. He was literally carried off the field in Game 7 in Cleveland after the game because it was his last game. He hit a home run off Andrew Miller in it. It was like one of the most it's the most memorable moment from David Ross's entire career. And then he remained close with the organization after that season, and it ended up getting him the managerial job after Joe Madden left. And he went through some bad years. Like, he went through a transition of, the COVID year was, kind of a wash for a lot of teams. I think a lot of things would have gone differently for the Cubs in 2020. I'm not even saying that they would have been good. I think roster-wise, it could have been a lot different if it wasn't a 60-game season. And that maybe there would have been a little bit more of a sample size. Maybe the front office could have been able to make some changes earlier. But you knew that when he took the job that there was going to be some sort of transition sooner or later with the roster, because they had a bunch of guys coming up on free agency, like Chris Bryant, like Anthony Rizzo, like Javier Baez, a few other guys. And they chose the route of basically trading everyone. And, it was looked at very bad from the fan base. I mean, everyone was angry that they had traded everyone that had won the one World Series and after a 108-year curse. A large majority of the fan base was angry with Jed Hoyer. But the thing is that as time has gone on now, a lot of those moves are looking really good for the Cubs. And that's all thanks to Jed Hoyer and the team he's assembled with scouting and player development, stuff like that. So to me, he deserves a lot of credit for setting the organization up to have better days ahead. Again, it's been tough, especially this year after I, didn't come into the season with high expectations, but, some timid expectations, hopefully play some games that mattered in September, saw some growth on the farm system, which we did. And they played well enough in July and August that I felt like maybe they could actually get into the playoffs. And then Arizona just got insanely hot, and I had to watch them beat the Cubs up multiple times in person in Arizona after I was visiting you in Colorado.
And the Rockies beating up on the Cubs a little bit
yes,
too in that
yeah,
spot, taking 2 out of 3.
Right. Right. I chose the wrong time to go out to Colorado and Arizona.
True.
But to bring it back around, despite some of the tough few years that, the Cubs have had, they've had a lot of growth organizationally. I think their organizationally, they are as healthy as they've been since probably 2015 when, they had prospects like Chris Bryant and Addison Russell and Javier Baez and Kyle Schwarber and all those guys coming up who hadn't had any major league experience yet.
And trade capital to use at the next year's deadline, which helped them win 2016.
Exactly. Right, exactly. They had organizationally, again, they are as healthy as they've been, and from those trades that Jed Hoyer made, they got one of them is Kevin Alcantara, who came back in the Anthony Rizzo trade. He's been killing it in the Arizona Fall League this fall, and he's reached top 100 prospect status. Pete Crow Armstrong, you got to see when he made his debut in Colorado. Looks like a stud defensively. We'll see if he'll be able to find a way to be a decent major league hitter, but there's high upside there. They got for Javier Baez, who from the Mets, who they didn't even keep him. So they got a prospect like PCA for the Mets to have 2 months of Javier Baez in which they didn't even make the playoffs. And on top of it, and I hate saying it, but like Javier Baez has been one of the worst hitters in baseball since he left the Cubs.
Hey, that's one of the reasons why he opted in to his final years. He didn't opt out like Cody Bellinger did.
Right.
But you make like huge points about Jed Hoyer. You're not going to please everybody, and it's a balance of, hey, you're going to upset the fan base a little bit, but you're doing what's right for the organization, and you're going to upset some of your friends and quote unquote family in the front office when you have to make those tough decisions. We got to do that to find that bit of success. It'll be interesting to see what they do on the free agent front as far as players go now that they've got their manager. But Cody Bellinger got the qualifying offer. He'll reject that. Obviously, any day now. I don't know why it didn't just happen right away. Does he seem like a logical fit to come back, or will the Cubs actually be players for Shohei Ohtani, which they've been a name that's been thrown into the mix now lately?
I know, and I'm trying not to get too high about it, but if anyone knows me, I can't help myself. So
you can't have everything you want, Cody. You can't have Craig Counsell and Ohtani.
I know. As far as Bellinger, I've said it on our show honestly, since the season ended and was forced to watch postseason baseball without the Cubs, I've been, emphasizing it almost every show that Cody Bellinger is number one priority for the Cubs to bring back just because of his defensive versatility. And I like the type of hitter that he has transformed himself into. Even with his best years in Los Angeles, he still, was I wouldn't say a high strikeout guy, but he's definitely struck out more than he did this past season with the Cubs. He was one of the best two-strike hitters in baseball this year, on top of someone who still hit 26 homers and drove in a lot of runs in the middle of the lineup for the Cubs. He just looks like a guy who, at the very least, you're going to get a 4-WAR player for the next handful of years. And I'll take that. And I think that a lot of teams would love to have a player like that. And, he's still young, so he could even get back to an MVP level type player. And I think if he doesn't get hurt in May like he did, and he got hurt making a fabulous catch in Houston, he hurt his knee in the process, and it forced him to miss a month. I think if he had stayed healthy, I don't think he wins MVP, but I think he might have been able to at least been part of the conversation just because of what he did to help the Cubs be relevant this year. Considering
that might even add 2 more wins and get them in the postseason. You're right; it changes the whole narrative.
Exactly. So, to me, I know it's only 1 year coming off a bunch of bad years, but the Cubs have his hitting coach that he had in Los Angeles. I think he deserves a lot of credit. Dustin Kelly. He seems like a guy that the fit makes a lot of sense, even with PCA right there. I'm not sure, based off what we saw from PCA in September, if the Cubs feel confident putting him on the opening day roster right now. I think the Cubs need to they need to have someone shored up, and if they feel like PCA is a guy that can be on the opening day roster, well, they still have issues at first base. So. And the fact that long season, you have to grind it out. It's a marathon, as the players say. His defensive versatility allows them to rest some guys. He can play corner outfield too, so you can rest Ian Happ or Seiya Suzuki on certain days. I just think with the ability to play him almost anywhere, at least at 4 different positions, I think that you can find a way to get Cody Bellinger in your lineup. You know what I mean? So. Yeah, he's number one priority. I'll dream about Ohtani. I will say this about Ohtani: when he came over from Japan, a handful of years ago, the Cubs were the one National League team that I think they were somewhat of a finalist on his list. And at the time, there was no DH still. So I think the fact that the Cubs have Seiya Suzuki on their team, who's also obviously from Japan, and them being friends, and him having the conversation with the Cubs prior, so he probably has some sort of relationship or familiarity of talking to some of those guys. And the fact that the Cubs, at least on paper, and with where their farm system's at and how they have shown that they can flex their financial muscle sometimes, I think that you can convince Ohtani that, hey, we're trying to win here. And he's been with an organization that I feel like they try to win, but they've just always been a mess in one particular area, or two, maybe three. I'll never be able to understand how you had Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani on your team and not be able to
Anthony
make the
Rendon.
playoffs.
Don't forget about
and Anthony Rendon, sure, yeah.
Hey, look, if anything communicates we are trying to win, it's a team that hires a manager when they already have a manager. So maybe Ohtani's like, hey, all right, that's these guys are really going for it. The money is absolutely going to talk when it comes to Ohtani. But here's the thing. Would you forego sausage and peppers for the rest of your life to sign Shohei Ohtani? Like, I mean, you have to give up something. If it's not financial, you have to give up something. Would you do that to sign Ohtani?
Yeah, I would do that. Yeah, absolutely. I would absolutely do that. There's still many great things, many great foods here in the great city of Chicago. I can, if I have to eat more pizza or something like that, fine. You'll
make the sacrifice.
I'll eat more beefs, more Italian beefs. Listen, Portillo's is a great place, and they have more than just hot dogs and sausages and Chicago style hot dogs. You know what I mean? So I will gladly give those things up for Shohei Ohtani. Hell, whoever, like, if we have to send something to someone, like if we have to send the bean to to Anaheim or something, they come pick it up and take it. I will. He is one of those guys that I would do almost anything to get. It's not even just because I think the Cubs would be good with him. It's just like he's an international superstar. The viewership that would come to the Cubs if they signed Shohei Ohtani would be insane. The obviously a ton of bandwagon fans would come on, but like, man, like it would be so special to just be able to go and watch Shohei Ohtani at Wrigley Field, 80 times a year.
Right.
For Ryan, Ryan Herrera, our beat guy for CHGO Cubs, or just fans who go to the ballpark every day, the season ticket holders. And Wrigley Field's such a touristy type place for a lot of people who come to come to the city. If they come to Wrigley Field and know that Shohei Ohtani's there, I mean, like, ownership is going to make that money back so much quicker than I think a lot of people even realize. I don't even care how much you have to pay the guy.
No, you know what you need to do. you need to invest in real estate, and all of those homes that are on Waveland, Ashland, all that with the rooftop seating, Sheffield. Buy the property behind that and put bleachers on that, because he's going to be sending them out over those rooftop bleachers. So that's a little investment. Actually, send me a quote. I think I might want to get in on that. And seeing as though you're now like clearly a brand ambassador to Portillo's, I mean, I think you've got a couple bucks you could invest in that. Cody, thank you so much. Go ahead and plug away. Let folks know. I'll go ahead and give a personal thumbs up, a verbal to the CHGO Cubs podcast, because you guys obviously right now you're at the heart of the baseball world, and the coverage is also great on top of all that. But go ahead and plug away. Let folks know where they can check your stuff out.
Awesome. I appreciate that, by the way. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at CHGO_Cubs. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Cody_CHGO. CHGO Sports YouTube channel if you're into other Chicago sports, or if you're you're a baseball fan, want to see perspectives from not only CHGO Cubs but the White Sox. If you're interested, check them out. I think that covers it all. All City, we're the best, man. Subscribe to all of our YouTube channels.
That's it. Join the community in all forms at Cody_CHGO on the X machine, as it's
on
now. Cody, thank you so much, man. Appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thanks again, Patrick.
Oh, man. You know what? I also appreciate a great pair of sunglasses. And not only just a great pair of sunglasses, but a pair that if they happen to magically disappear because of my foolishness, or I happen to sit on them, which I've never done, sarcasm, they, Shady Rays, of course, will hook you up with a new pair. Lost and broken replacement policy. It's absolutely amazing. They actually got something going on right now. You buy one, you get a pair for free. Holidays are coming up. maybe you get one for yourself, and then the free one is for a friend or a loved one, or you take care of 2 people in one shot when you use code DNVR over at shadyrays.com with your shades that, man, 250,000 folks have rated 5 stars. Online, you can go down to the Park Meadows Mall where 2 or more pairs gets you 50% off those bad boys. That's what I wear, and that's what I wore all the time. The entire time. When you didn't see me in the entire month of October, I was in Phoenix wearing my Shady Rays. That's where I was, and that's what I was wearing on my face. And what you can have in your tummy is Breck Brew. Broncos country, to be exact. That's the Breck Brew of the month. It's what we have at our tailgates. You can actually get it on tap down here in the corner of Colfax and York at the DNVR bar. It's made with 100% renewable energy, Colorado ingredients, hops from the North Fork Valley. It's a Colorado business. Support local. It's amazing. They think global. You can go ahead and act local with Breck Brew, Broncos country. GM meetings going on right now down in Arizona, Scottsdale to be exact. What is the GM meetings? Well, it's been around for a while, but it definitely seems to have grown in its size and scope. It's kind of like what the winter meetings have really become in the past 10, 15, 20 years, where now the entire baseball world descends on the winter meetings. This year it'll be in Nashville. I, of course, will be down there, as well as a lot of other folks from the All-City, CHGO, PHNX. Hopefully we'll have somebody from PHLY as well. It's going to be great. But the GM meetings is just the general managers. They review the rule changes that just went down in 2023, see if there's any tweaks. They can discuss those things. Nothing will happen, but they'll be discussing that, as well as the current postseason format, which we know has got a lot of conversation centered on it, especially in the first part of the postseason with those teams that got the first round bye and were kind of sitting on their butts for 5 days, came out and lost against those teams that were fresh, that got to play and stay hot throughout the wild card round. That's something that they're going to discuss. They're going to say hi to some of the new members to their group, although they're new in their roles. They've been around for a while in some form or fashion. David Stern, president of baseball operations of the New York Mets. Peter Bendix, who's now the president of baseball operations. The POBO, get used to that. We say GM all the time. Everyone knows that means general manager. POBO, president of baseball operations. Peter Bendix, he's there. Came over from Tampa. Marlins hired him. It's one of the reasons why Kim Ang said, you basically want to give me a boss after everything I've done, taking this team back to the postseason. Skip Schumacher, manager of the year award candidate. You know, he's getting his flowers, but Peter Bendix, the POBO, it's one of the reasons why, again, Kim Ang decided to leave the organization. Craig Breslow, now the chief baseball officer in Boston. Chris Getz, White Sox new general manager. And Jeff Greenberg, Tigers new GM. Jeff Greenberg, of course, got the job late in September with the Detroit Tigers after serving a year as the GM in Chicago of the NHL. Yes, the Chicago Blackhawks. He was the GM of them. It was baseball background, then went over to Chicago for a year, and then came back. Super producer Tiff, you follow hockey.
Yes.
Is this guy do a good job in Chicago? Or were there any like crazy scandals that went down for the Blackhawks in the past year that, you know, there's probably a reason why he's jumping ship, or was everything kind of copacetic?
No, everything's great in the Blackhawks community. You're joking, right? Are you joking?
I'm not joking. I don't.
Oh my gosh. No, they're actually
pay attention that much to others. But I am addicted to baseball, guys. You should know that. That is a gift and a curse. I will just search out nothing but baseball. So please update me on the Tigers' new GM, former GM of Chicago in the NHL.
So the Chicago Blackhawks are currently being sued again.
Okay.
For covering up sexual misconduct and assaults of of one of their development players by their former video coach.
Jeez.
This has been something that has already been in the news.
Yeah, I remember hearing about it. Was it maybe a year before it first broke, a year ago?
Yeah, that was settled. Now this is John Doe number 3.
That happens far too often in the NHL. I don't know why in the NHL, or maybe there's just isn't other cases of of youth players and
Yeah.
coaches, those kind of things.
And
But
it's
NHL a lot.
It's more that, like, well, everything awful aside, the Blackhawks, part of their cover up per se was that they didn't really tell anybody or any of his employers after the fact why he resigned from his position.
Yeah, best of luck to you out there. Keep getting employed.
Yes, and he was getting employed
not
at
good.
universities and
Oh,
high
man.
schools and, juniors clubs. So he was
The
able
scandal
to
just continues.
Yes.
Yeah,
So,
that's awful.
So yeah, they are facing more backlash because another person just came out.
Man, well, again, I don't know how much this person whose name I'm not even going to say after all of that is now with the Detroit Tigers had to do with it, but could very much just be like kind of jumping ship of like, wow, this is really dysfunctional because he wasn't there very long in Chicago with the Blackhawks. So again, that could be one of the reasons why I'm like, hey, wait a minute, I don't want to be attached to this at all. I don't want some baseball podcast in Colorado talking about me like I'm associated with this. I might as well leave. It's still going to be tied to this guy.
You'd have to
I don't
ask like AJ or somebody, AJ Hafley,
Man,
Denver sports expert here.
sure.
He'd probably be able to tell you kind of like if there was a big connection there, but it's definitely not a good PR in Blackhawk right now.
No, and yeah, look, we know there are people that
In
can
Chicago.
be good soldiers, and they've got to get out because there's a toxic environment and stuff there. But there's not a toxic environment. It's the opposite. If you're trying to get out of a toxic environment and into a positive environment, is there a word for that? We need a word for the DNVR bar. It's the opposite of a toxic environment.
Immaculate vibes.
An immaculate environment.
Immaculate environment.
In vibe, you're in it. We're gonna workshop
Yeah, we're
it.
gonna workshop
We
that.
could have something. It's definitely not gonna be a shirt because it's gonna be messy. It just sounds better. But the vibes are immaculate here on the corner of Colfax and York. We just got done with a really awesome watch party. Actually, we got a really good gathering. One of the takeovers that we had against Chicago is the Bulls. Actually, there's more coming up. For the Nuggets takeovers, December 16th is the next one. Celebration of Jokemas, of course, just a week before all the holidays get kicked off. Lower level seats, man, get on board with that and get those tickets for those takeovers. Diehard members, you get 20% off all the gear at DNVR Locker, 15% off food and drink here at the bar. There's Avs takeovers as well, December 9th against the Flyers. Does Gritty, look, I'm tapping you for all the NHL news.
That's okay.
Gritty doesn't go on the road, does it?
I don't.
It's in it.
I
Or is
don't
it a
think
they?
so.
Is
I
Gritty
don't-
they?
I think Gritty's a they. I'm gonna
They-
choose that Gritty's a they.
Gritty did get beat up. I did see a clip
He
recently.
got knocked out.
It was a bootleg Gritty,
I know.
but it looked a lot like Gritty. I'll say that much.
Well, Gritty got knocked out by the Sharks mascot
Yes,
last
that was what
night.
I saw.
Yeah.
That was what I saw. All right, so maybe Bernie will. You got to go to that game to kind of find out if Gritty's going to get taken down.
Bernie's so sweet. I can't even in
Yeah.
a battle royale of mascots. I would normally be okay with the Bernese Mountain Dog. I think they'd be okay, but Bernie is just too sweet.
What if he accidentally
hug
mistakes
somebody to
Gritty
death.
for a fire hydrant and just lifts a leg? Then it's like, oh, that's it checks off all the boxes.
It's
Still
effective.
sweet.
It's
Could work.
effective.
It's effective. It gets the job done. But if you're want to get some Gritty gear, I don't know if they got Gritty gear over on FOCO. They've got everything on FOCO. Like they've got this bobblehead that's right in front of me. They're pieces of art. They're limited edition. That's the new workaround too. Holidays are coming up. Treat yourself now. Get yourself some stuff early with code DNVR over at FOCO.com. You get 10% off all non-presale items and say, look, honey, this is a piece of art. This is artwork. It's sports artwork, but it is artwork nonetheless. It's limited edition kind of stuff. Go and get that. Get hats for just about any team. They got the CU Buffs overall, so many other wonderful colleges and pro sports teams as well. They got Peanuts bobbleheads, Flamingo Hawaiian button-ups. It's pretty cool. So make sure you get yourself checked out on that over on FOCO.com. Let's fly to the Far East. Let's go to Japan for our next couple stories here. So we talked with Cody about Shohei Ohtani. His market's still pretty much looking at $500 mil still on the table. Juan Soto, look, his agent Scott Boras has basically said point blank, $1.2 billion is what he's worth to any team. that signs him in free agency. He's got one more year left until he becomes a free agent. Shohei Ohtani's got to be worth $2 billion, maybe close to $2 billion, right? Got that international flair to him that makes him worth that much more than Juan Soto. So he should be able to get a third of that. So easy $500 million, $500 million, $500 million is what he's going to end up getting. And what's interesting too is when was the last time the best player in baseball was a free agent? Think about that. Right? Like Mookie Betts, you can make the case for him now, but he's never reached free agency. He got the extension from the Dodgers. Mike Trout, we know, has been the best player for a very long time. He was an extension guy. Bryce Harper, he was in free agency, but he's never the best player, certainly one of the best. Maybe it was Albert Pujols, probably in 2011, but even then his best days were behind him, and he was entering his age 32 season. So I don't necessarily think he was the best player. I have to say it would be A-Rod after the 2000 season. He was 25 years old going to free agency, an MVP, a perennial MVP candidate at age 25. So it's close to 25 years since we've had the best player in baseball actually on the free agent market. Teams are going to go bonkers. They didn't go that crazy in 2000, coincidentally, when Ichiro Suzuki came over to the States. Got a somewhat friendly deal. Had to prove himself. We hadn't seen a lot of Japanese hitters go on the market and make the transition to America, more pitchers than anything. And so legend, he's a guy who'll get in first ballot Hall of Famer. He's 50 years old now, still doing a lot of fun things. He was hanging out at a high school in Hokkaido, Japan. He hit one over the netting at this high school and broke a window. And it was like the sweetest thing you could see, these high schoolers and this 50-year-old guy just breaking a window. Like, I can only imagine all of those, TikTok personalities where they have reaction videos of things. If I was inclined, I would film something at my home of like just reading a book, and then all of a sudden the window blows out behind me. I peer out in the window, and who is it? It's Ichiro Suzuki taking batting practice with a bunch of high school kids. Kind of sweet. But I've got to know if you believe in the spirits. Tiff, are you able to tell me where you stand on this, Tiff, as far as curses? Do you believe in curses? Because I have to tell you about the curse of Colonel Sanders. Where's your stance on curses?
I believe in a good curse. I can believe in some good curses. I like to curse people myself.
Oh, okay, there we go. Different kind of curse, for sure. All right, try this on for size. Jump in if you need any clarifications. Let me know if this sounds legit. So we're staying in Japan. Nippon Professional Baseball, NPB. 1985, the Hanshin Tigers win the Central League pennant on the way going to the Japan Series. The fans celebrate. They jump in the nearby canal, the Dotonbori Canal. Everyone, as they jump into the canal, they pretend to be a different player. And then they realized, oh, wait a minute, like our MVP, our best player, the American-born Randy Bass. Now, this is a guy, he actually played with the Denver Bears in 79, 80, and 82. Had 9 home runs in the major leagues. Goes to Japan, hits 35, 27, and then 54 home runs in that 1985 season. So they're looking around, they're like, we need someone that looks like Randy Bass. We need that. They realize there's a nearby KFC with a Colonel Sanders statue. They rip it out the ground, and they throw it in the canal. They did not win they won the Japan Series. They did. But after that, they have nothing but bad luck. So many players get hurt. Randy Bass's career kind of falls off a table. They lose the draft lottery to sign some great Japanese pitchers like Hideo Nomo, great slugger, and Hideki Matsui. Bass in 1988, he goes home to America during the middle of the season and decides he's just going to stay there, so he doesn't even come back. Then they're in last place nearly every single season for the next 18 years. They win the pennant in 2003. They get a chance to reverse the curse in 2003. Fans jump back in the canal before the Japan Series, and one man loses his life during the celebration.
Oh no, that is not the turn I thought this was going to take.
They lose that Japan Series as well. They lose then as well. And then in 2009, they finally pull the Colonel Sanders statue out from the canal. That didn't change much. This year, they faced the Oryx Buffaloes. They're down 3-2. They got beaten bad by Yoshinobu Yamamoto, who is possibly the best pitcher in free agency that's out there. But they end up winning Game 7 to end the 28-year curse of Colonel Sanders. Who'd have thunk it? All is well in the world.
Wow. What a full circle sort of.
The curse of Colonel Sanders in Japan. Look at that.
That's wild.
I don't know if we're all the wiser for knowing that.
Yeah.
Are we all a little dumber for that? I don't know.
Yeah, just good. Good. Did you know? Yeah, that's a good did you know sort of thing.
Not did you care. Those are two different things. I've had to learn that the hard way. But yes, curse of Colonel Sanders is over. I think the Rockies, do they have a curse on them? I've sort of said it's the curse of the Cretaceous period, because they did unearth, some dinosaur bones near and in and around the area. So, Coors Field, is it on a dinosaur burial site? Is that the curse that the Rockies are suffering from right now? Hard to say. Let us know what you think, whether it's in the chat on YouTube, DNVR Sports Channel, where you're watching this live, or going back to watch it, whether it's in the comments. Please make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Do that whole thing. We're over on Twitter at DNVR_Rockies. At Patrick D. Lyons is where I can be found on Twitter. Super producer Tiff, a.k.a. full-time Tiff, at Tiff_Tano. No, it's Tiffany_Tano, right?
Heck yeah, you got it.
But with an I?
Yep, Tiffany with an I.
See, I pay attention here.
So smart.
We want you to pay attention tomorrow, because, look, we got a lot of momentum. Cody gave us that talking about the Cubs, but that momentum is only good as your next show. So it's still going to be a great one tomorrow, back at noon, right here on the DNVR Sports Channel, live on YouTube.
We all silly like the mayor.